Emiliano Martinez wasn't a first pick until the age of 27. He was a backup goalkeeper with no future. But despite his setbacks, Martinez went from Arsenal's forgotten man to the most feared penalty keeper on the planet. A man who stared down Mbappe, broke Van Dijk's mind, and turned shootouts into a one-man circus of chaos. His mind games were so effective that FIFA had to change the rules because of it. In the next few minutes, we're diving into how a journeyman keeper became so overpowered that FIFA had to rewrite the game just to stop him literally. Before Emiliano Martinez became the World Cup villain, he was Arsenal's invisible man. 10 years under contract, 10 years of packing his gloves for games he rarely played. His journey wasn't a straight road. It was a collection of dead ends that would have broken most players long before the world ever saw his smile or his smirk. Martinez arrived in London as a teenager from Independiente, a wide-eyed kid whose only request during contract talks was that Arsenal buy his father a car. At this point, he had no European pedigree, no youth tournament buzz. From the moment he landed, he was overshadowed by a wall of established names. Szczesny, Fabianski, Ospina, Cech, one after another. Arsenal always had a new number one. Martinez was the emergency option, the training ground extra, the name you only heard when everyone else was injured. And when those rare call-ups ended, the cycle began again. They sent him out on loan every year. These loan spells were supposed to build him. Instead, they slowly broke him. One week, he'd get a short call from his agent, "Pack your bags, you are off to Oxford." He'd stuff his life into a suitcase, meet a new set of teammates, shake a manager's hand who barely knew his name, and hear the same thing every single time. Just cover until our starter's back on the field. He'd play a few matches in front of the fans who weren't there for him, get another call from his agent, pack his bags again, and the grueling process would repeat at some other club. Whether it was Sheffield Wednesday, Rotherham, Wolves or Getafe, each door would open with hope, only to be closed with the same polite, "No, thank you." 9 loans in 9 years. At one point, he went 389 days without a single first-team appearance. Imagine being paid to chase a dream and never being trusted to prove it. That was the reality of Martinez with Arsenal. But the crazy part was, Martinez wasn't a bad goalkeeper. Every time he was handed a rare chance, he made it count. He wasn't flashy, but he was reliable, a wall that refused to crumble. In training, teammates whispered about his reflexes, the way he could spring low to his left or rise to claw the ball out of the top corner. Even the coaches noticed it. Arsène Wenger once went as far as calling him the future, a tag that hung over him for years like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. But that future never arrived. And when it finally did, Martinez had a bad night. 5 goals conceded to Reading in a League Cup game, and the door slammed shut again. In that chaotic League Cup matchup, Martinez watched 5 shots fly past him before the 60-minute mark. A looping header sneaking past his hands, and the crowd groaning, and every effort he made after that was like trying to stop a flood with bare hands. Arsenal did manage to secure a 7-5 victory, but for the decision makers, that single night sealed Martinez's fate. Even when Petr Cech left, Unai Emery signed Bernd Leno for a record fee, making it clear that Arsenal saw Martinez as nothing more than insurance. By 2019, he was 27 years old. Goalkeepers his age were supposed to be entering their primes. But Martinez was still waiting for a chance that might never come, still earning a fraction of the wages paid to men he outworked in training every day. He had promised his mother he wouldn't return to Argentina as just another failed export, but every season that promise felt more like a cruel joke. Then came the twist no one could script. A pandemic, a freak ACL injury to Leno, and suddenly, the forgotten man was all Arsenal had left. It wasn't supposed to be a career break. It was supposed to be a temporary fill-in. But for Emiliano Martinez, it was the door he had been waiting to kick open for a decade. When Emiliano Martinez finally left Arsenal in 2020, it didn't feel like a triumph. It felt like a gamble. Aston Villa were paying £20 million for a man with fewer Premier League appearances than some academy keepers. Villa fans were furious. A backup keeper, nearly 28, was supposed to save them. It looked like desperation, but Martinez saw it as destiny. On his debut, things escalated quickly when a Sheffield player went down yards away from the post. Martinez found himself standing against the Sheffield number 7. He leaned forward, took a deep breath, his eyes laser-focused on the ball. The striker moved forward, a swift touch, and Martinez instantly lunged to his right, stopping the ball mid-air. He got up, beating his chest, and so did the Aston Villa fans. The stadium went loud, and his debut stole 3 points and silenced the noise in one leap. Within weeks, he was posting shot-stopping numbers that ranked among the league's elite. Villa supporters went from doubting the signing to chanting his name. For the first time in a decade, Martinez wasn't a placeholder. He was a hero. But that was just a little chapter in his story. The legend was just beginning. Argentina needed a saviour, someone who can solve their defence crisis, one that had haunted them since the days of Goicoechea. It was time for Martinez to do his national duty. He hadn't worn his country's shirt since an under-17 tournament a lifetime ago. The moment felt surreal. He had spent years watching the national team from his couch. Now, at 28, he was being asked to stand behind Lionel Messi. The call-up wasn't ceremonial. Argentina needed saves, and Martinez delivered them. Copa America 2021 became his stage. Against Uruguay, against Paraguay, he played with a calm that belied his inexperience. And when the semi-final against Colombia went to penalties, the world met the other side of Emiliano Martinez. He danced on the line, shouted at takers, and guessed right 3 times. His trash talk was so sharp it cut through empty stadium acoustics. "I know you, brother. I'm going to eat you alive." He wasn't bluffing. To understand what Martinez was really doing, you have to understand what happens in those 12 yards. Penalties look simple, but they're a duel of habits and micro-tells. Goalkeepers spend hours studying the angle of a striker's hips, the speed of a run-up, even the way they glance at the ball before contact. One subtle lean can betray a corner. Shooters know this, so they rehearse a perfect routine until it's muscle memory. Martinez's genius was to smash that routine. By talking, delaying, even nudging the ball, he forced opponents to think, and thinking is death from 12 yards. Every extra heartbeat makes the goal shrink. Argentina advanced. Messi finally lifted an international trophy, and Martinez walked away with the Golden Glove. Overnight, the man who had been Arsenal's forgotten backup became the most feared goalkeeper in South America. His penalty save percentage shot into historic territory, but it was the swagger that stuck with people. The stare-downs, the mind games, the grin after each stop. By the end of that summer, Martinez wasn't just Aston Villa's bargain or Messi's safety net. He was Argentina's number 1 and a cult figure for a country that had been starved of silverware for nearly 3 decades. From zero to national hero, Emiliano Martinez had finally cashed in on every lonely night, every forgotten loan spell, every broken promise. And he wasn't close to finished. If the Copa America was Emiliano Martinez's coming out party, that semi-final against Colombia was the night he tore the mask off and revealed the villain inside. 90 minutes had passed, 1 goal each, and the match slid into a penalty shootout. In a silent stadium where every word could echo, Martinez turned the shootout into a theatre of chaos. He started small. A stare, a slow walk to the line. Then came the talk. "I know you, brother. You're nervous. I'm going to eat you alive." To Yerry Mina, to Davinson Sanchez, to anyone who dared step forward, Martinez unleashed a storm of taunts. He wagged his fingers, kicked the ball away, forced them to pick it up themselves. The referee warned him, but he knew the rules. A keeper can't be sent off in a shootout. That freedom became a weapon. Colombia's players tried to block him out. but you could see the hesitation in their run-ups, the tight shoulders, the late stutter steps. One by one, they cracked. 3 penalties saved. 3 minds broken. Martinez danced after each stop, arms wide, voice carrying through the empty stands. Argentina advanced, and Lionel Messi, usually the quiet assassin, roared in celebration, pointing at Martinez and screaming, "He's a phenomenon!" That night wasn't a fluke. In the final against Brazil, Martinez faced Neymar and the tournament favourites with the same icy swagger. He didn't need a shootout this time. He smothered crosses, punched away danger, and frustrated Brazil until Di Maria's lone goal stood as the winner. When the whistle blew, Martinez fell to his knees and wept. 28 years of Argentine heartbreak ended, and the man who had spent a decade on loan was suddenly a continental champion. The numbers were absurd. A 50% career penalty save rate at the international level, a golden glove as the best keeper of the tournament. But the stats only tell half the story. What lingered was the image of a keeper turning a penalty shootout, normally a contest of skill and nerve, into a psychological ambush. He showed the world that a goalkeeper didn't have to be passive, that you could dominate a shootout without making a single save just by making opponents doubt themselves. For Argentina, Martinez was more than a goalkeeper. He was a weapon, a man who used fear as effectively as reflexes. From that night on, every striker who faced him carried the memory of those words echoing across an empty stadium. "I know you. I'm gonna eat you alive." By the time Qatar 2022 kicked off, Emiliano Martinez was no longer a secret. Copa America champion, Golden Glove winner, Premier League standout. Opponents knew his tricks, and yet none of them were ready for the full evolution of his dark arts. In Qatar, Martinez didn't just play goalkeeper, he played puppeteer. Argentina's campaign started with a gut punch, a shock too. One defeat to Saudi Arabia left them rattled. Martinez conceded twice on the first 2 shots he faced, a nightmare opening for a keeper built on bravado. But instead of unravelling, he reset. Each match after that was a quiet masterclass in composure. Against Mexico, Poland and Australia, he commanded his box, smothered danger, and rebuilt Argentina's belief one clean catch at a time. Then came the moments that defined him. Round of 16, Argentina clinging to a 1-goal lead over Australia. In stoppage time, Aziz Behic broke through and fired low. Martinez sprang left, fingertips saving Argentina's tournament by millimetres. It was a snapshot of everything he'd promised his mother back in Mar del Plata, that he would not come home as a nobody. The quarter-final against the Netherlands turned into psychological warfare. Argentina had led 2-0, only to concede twice in the dying minutes. As the shootout began, the stadium buzzed with Dutch momentum. Martinez stepped forward, eyes locked, and the games began. He bounced on the line, delayed kicks, stared down Virgil van Dijk until the Dutch captain blinked first. Van Dijk's penalty rocketed off Martinez's outstretched arm. Sports psychologists call it decision fatigue. A penalty should be automatic. Pick a side. Trust the strike. That's how the best penalty takers such as Cristiano Ronaldo do it. By keeping it simple, Martinez turned it into a pop quiz. By bouncing, delaying, and locking eyes with the taker, he stretched each run-up just long enough to make even veterans like Virgil van Dijk doubt their first choice. The longer the wait, the heavier the ball feels. And once doubt enters the equation, even the cleanest technique can crumble. And he did the same thing with Berghuis. Same routine, same result. 2 saves, a roar toward the Argentine bench, and suddenly, the Netherlands were done. Afterward, Martinez shouted at Louis van Gaal, taunting the veteran coach who had questioned Argentina's tactics. It was ruthless, maybe cruel, and exactly what his team needed. But the final against France was his masterpiece. A game for the ages. Messi versus Mbappe, leads gained and lost, hearts broken and reborn. Martinez watched Mbappe bury 3 penalties across regulation and extra time, but refused to break. In the dying seconds, Randall Kolo Muani sprinted clear, one-on-one with immortality. Martinez charged, flung out a left leg, and blocked the shot with his shin, a save already etched into Argentine folklore. He celebrated with a clenched fist and a scream that carried through Lusail Stadium like a thunderclap. The shootout that followed was peak Martinez. He grabbed the ball and tossed it aside, forcing French takers to walk a little farther, think a little longer. He danced after each save, spread his arms to the crowd, and even when the referee warned him, he never relented. Kingsley Coman's penalty? Saved. Aurelien Tchouameni's? Sent wide after a Martinez mind game. Argentina were world champions, and Martinez walked away with the Golden Glove, which he famously held in front of his crotch, sparking outrage and delight in equal measure. Across the tournament, Martinez faced 24 penalties in major international competitions and allowed barely half to go in, numbers that border on the absurd. But the stats almost missed the point. Martinez didn't just save shots, he saved moments. He weaponized tension, forcing the biggest stars in football to second-guess their instincts. In a World Cup defined by chaos, he was the conductor. From a decade of lonely loan spells to standing atop the football world, Emiliano Martinez perfected the dark arts on the game's grandest stage. He didn't just win a trophy, he rewrote the psychology of the penalty, proving that sometimes the loudest, boldest mind can be more dangerous than the fastest reflex. By the time Emiliano Martinez was lifting the World Cup, his antics had become more than a talking point. They were a problem. Coaches complained in press conferences, players vented in interviews, and referees admitted privately that they felt powerless. Penalty shootouts were supposed to be nerve tests, not psychological hostage situations, and yet Martinez had turned them into performance art. In the months after Qatar, the chorus grew louder. French officials filed formal complaints after his Golden Glove celebration. Opponents described his tricks in painful detail, and the ball tosses, the mock delays, the relentless chatter. IFAB, the body that writes football's laws, quietly began reviewing footage of every Martinez shootout. Frame by frame, they catalogued the gestures, the little kicks to move the ball off the spot, the late jumps, the way he handed the ball to his own teammate, but made opponents fetch it themselves. What they found wasn't technically illegal. It was worse. It was legal mischief, exploiting every inch of ambiguity in the rulebook. Martinez knew that a keeper can't be sent off in a shootout, so yellow cards were empty threats. He used the dead space between whistles to plant doubt, to make strikers feel like the ground was shifting beneath them. By mid-2023, FIFA decided enough was enough. New guidelines were issued. Goalkeepers must remain on their line without unnecessary delay. No verbal distractions. No gestures designed to unsettle the taker. No throwing or moving the ball away from the spot. IFAB didn't just list technical infractions. It warned that goalkeepers were creating unfair distraction, language aimed at protecting the striker's mental space. It was an unusually frank admission that a goalkeeper's psychology, not just his gloves, could decide the biggest matches. The official circular didn't name him, but even neutral pundits called them the Martinez laws. One clause even specified that keepers could not unfairly delay the taking of the kick, a direct response to his habit of hiding or rolling the ball just out of reach. Reporters asked him for a reaction. Martinez barely flinched. "I already saved the penalties I had to save," he said with a shrug, a grin flashing across his face. To him, the rule change wasn't punishment, it was proof. Proof that a kid once forgotten on Arsenal's loan list had forced the most powerful organisation in football to rewrite its sacred text. And true to character, he promised to adapt. "We will always find a way," he told Argentine TV. It wasn't bravado, it was a statement of fact. The dark arts might be trimmed, but the mind games weren't dead. Martinez had already shown he could win with saves alone. The talk, The dances, the chaos, were just the bonus. When FIFA changed the rules, they weren't just responding to a goalkeeper, they were acknowledging a revolution. Emiliano Martinez had proved that a single player, armed with nothing but nerve and a grin, could bend the world's biggest sport until it snapped. Emiliano Martinez didn't just collect trophies, he rewrote what it means to be a goalkeeper. For decades, keepers were judged by clean sheets and reflex saves. Martinez added a new metric: psychological dominance. He showed that a goalkeeper could be more than a last line of defence. He could be the spark that tilts entire tournaments. Since Qatar, copycats have emerged everywhere. Young keepers study his penalty routines, the pauses, the stares, the subtle movements that make shooters question their own run-ups. Coaches talk about the Martinez effect, designing mental training sessions to prepare players for his kind of warfare. Even with FIFA's new restrictions, you still see keepers bouncing on the line, whispering to strikers, looking for that inch of doubt he proved could decide everything. Statistically, his record is absurd. 50% of international penalties against him have failed. But numbers can't capture the shift he created. Martinez made goalkeeping cool again. He gave the position swagger, a personality usually reserved for strikers. From a forgotten Arsenal loanee to a World Cup champion who forced FIFA to rewrite the laws, his career is the ultimate underdog blueprint. Years from now, when kids line up to take their first penalties, they won't just think about the shot. They'll think about the keeper watching them, smiling, daring them to blink first. That's Emiliano Martinez's true legacy, a goalkeeper who turned mind games into an art form and made the whole world play along. Emiliano Martinez proved that greatness isn't always about highlight saves or perfect technique. Sometimes it's about nerve, about daring the world to stop you. He spent a decade being ignored, loaned out, and labelled a backup, only to rise at the exact moment football needed a villain. He taunted legends, froze superstars, and forced FIFA to rewrite the rulebook just to contain him. From the FA Cup with Arsenal to Copa America glory to the night he danced in Qatar, Martinez turned goalkeeping into theatre. He didn't just save penalties, he saved careers, trophies, and entire nations' dreams. And he did it all with a grin that said he was enjoying every second. That's the beauty of his story. A kid who once begged for a chance became so overpowered that the sport itself had to change. Emiliano Martinez didn't just win games, he bent the game around him and left his name in its laws forever.